Well, yeah. Okay. Any other questions from Matt?
Can you go over just the big projects that we planned for CDBG, and those are over 5 years, or they're not? They're not this year.
No, well, okay, so the 5-year consolidated plan establishes your relative goals and priorities
Okay.
from high priority to low priority. What we're programming in terms of actual expenditures is just for next year's
Just for this
And
budget.
we do that on an annual basis.
We do that every year, so,
Okay.
which is essentially our grant application to HUD. But each year, the annual action plan has to be consistent with the goals and priorities you establish through the
The
5-year
five-year plan.
consolidated plan. It's the umbrella document that guides each year's projects and activities.
Okay.
Okay. All right, well, thanks, Matt. Okay, next we go on to under new business. Adopting the fiscal year classification comp plan, and it says, Ms. Fleming, are you briefing this?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
So this is the annual unapproved request for consideration for the classification and compensation plan for the coming fiscal year. We covered this and included this expenditures in the budget for this year. What this plan, the things that this does this year is it continues the 2% step increase, which has been done annually since we implemented the class and comp in 2015. So implemented in 2015, and then each subsequent year, the staff have gotten a 2% step increase. This also implements the 2% market increase in the pay ranges, and this is the first one of those since the implementation of that. I'll be happy to answer any questions or anything you have.
This has already been included in the budget that we looked at.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, everything is budgeted at these current rates.
okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, Barbara. We next go on to the tentative budget, Ms. Yarborough.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So this sets your tentative budget at the amount of $90,360,774. That is a change from the budget book that you were presented before Memorial Day weekend. I'll go through what those changes were in just a second. But what this vote does is it caps your fiscal year 19-20 budget at that amount. The final budget could be less than that or equal to the tentative budget amount, but it could not be more. So it caps it at that amount. So the changes that are in here from your budget book are the changes to the consolidated court agreement, which we'll go through in a few minutes, that we finished negotiating in between the tentative budget book and the budget book and the tentative budget. Now, the EMS substation was added back in, slight oversight, not so slight. An increase to the city manager full-time salaries line, and then we decided to change the way we were budgeting for CCOM to make it more transparent about what the expenses and revenues actually were. So you'll see the differences then in how the revenue was budgeted from the county to the city, and then the CCOM fund was added, and that was the majority of why the change was so significant. The capital improvement fund, we added in the OICC Visitor Center remodel. That is still under discussion, but at least it's in there if it would need to go forward. And then the change to the HERF fund based on the legislature's decision to give each city and town an additional allotment for the year. So those are your changes from the tentative budget book to the budget book to the tentative budget here, and I can answer any more questions you may have.
I have a quick question. I thought we were looking at, and maybe I just made this up. Sometimes I make things up and I feel like they're true. I'll just be honest about that. I thought we were looking at closer to $2 million for the substation.
We brought that way down. We
Okay.
sat down and looked, and that was there were some standard things in there that we looked at and said, no, we don't need that, we don't need that.
Okay.
Such things like we thought we might need a light at the intersection, and those run about, I'm not sure, 250 to 350,000,
the
so
big
things like
works,
that
yeah.
came out when we
Okay.
sat down and went through the list that engineering had put together preliminarily and said, we don't need that, we don't need that. And actually, I think we can probably do better than the 1 million, and
Okay.
we're working on that right now, related to the potential cost of the tower for the communications. We had budgeted pretty high from that. We think we can bring that way down. So that's where 1 million is. We're fairly comfortable that that's the ceiling, but we think we can do better. And in the end, it'll be financed as well, but we need to account for
Okay. But we're not shorting anything important by just doing it at,
it. No. It does not include vehicles. We'll budget for that later.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Yarborough. We next go on to extension of the moratorium of development fees. Mr. McLaughlin, your name's on this one.
Okay, well, it's a pretty straightforward proposition. The current 2-year moratorium is scheduled to sunset at the end of this month. The city has engaged a consultant to prepare an impact fee assessment and recommend a new fee schedule. That process is scheduled to take about a year, including the required public hearings. And so the resolution before you would extend the moratorium by a year to provide time for that work to be done. The fiscal impact of the moratorium since July of 2017 is approximately $642,000. 2/3 of this amount is from the 140 single-family home permits that have been issued since the start of the moratorium.
So the number you gave me was what again? 600?
640,000.
640,000
So
is the,
320 a year.
is the money that we didn't collect,
That's correct.
but that's only 75% of the, is it 75% of the total?
Yeah, it's,
So
if
that
it
means
was at 100%.
that means we would have had to pull another, what'd you say, out of the budget to pay for it?
That was 100. We applied.
Oh, you applied the 100%?
Yeah, the 100%.
Oh,
Well, that was the 100%.
That was 100%. So
So cut, so
So
we're talking
75% of that.
150 150 grand
Was
approximately.
gone, yeah.
We would have to kick in out of the budget, okay, for the last 2 years. So,
Just so council's aware, Mr. Mayor, next year we will be bringing the new package forward to you. There are some parts of the current system that have not worked well. Primarily the park development fee is actually in arrears to the capital improvements fund as a result of the lack of development. And we have made moves in terms of purchasing land and doing other park improvements, and that's why that's behind. And I'm not sure that's the best way to do parks in the future. I think the best way is probably to make a proposal through the development process to have the developers actually build the parks that are on the plan, and then you know, convey those to us as part of the actual planning process. So that's a major change. We also don't have a fee for drainage improvements and haven't had one, and those can be fairly significant costs, and I would like to.
and the question then is, I know the law was very specific about what we could and could not choose impact fees. And is drainage one of the things we
I
can
think
in
that
fact
is
do?
one of the things we can do.
Okay.
So basically, and that's part of what the consultant will be doing, is going through, telling us what we can and can't do, and hopefully giving us an idea of how much that fee needs to be. I would anticipate that the package we will bring to the council early next year will probably be less of a fee than what was in place before. So I think the street fee was probably pretty high, and I think a lot of that has been taken care of. So I anticipate a lower fee after this is all said and done. But we do need to move forward, and we'll be recommending the new fee structure, particularly since some of the subdivisions that have been on hold for a while should really start picking up at a faster pace than what Matt talked about here over the last 2 years.
so we don't expect significant development in the next year then?
Well, if we use that as an average, we'll probably lose another 300,000 under the current system. And that is your other option, is to not, move forward with the moratorium, in which case it would revert back to the old fee structure on July 1st. So I think, I don't think it's a significant amount of money. I'm not anticipating any large, like big box developments or anything like that. And I'm sure that the contractors would appreciate one more year of moratorium. But like I said, not necessarily sure whether those projects would have been put on hold or not as a result of having the fee.
And the other thing too is, obviously the housing market is getting more lucrative. We've seen one developer actually pre-position some ground pipes, but I found out from them they're not really getting ready to develop. They did a bulk buy on the plastic pipe because they look at the market and the market's going to go, cost is going to go up from what they're seeing. So they bought them and they're basically holding them until they get ready to start developing their properties.
We're seeing some development on previously approved plats, obviously. The ones that were on hold, Tribute and the Workman project in Section 2 would be the ones probably to go next. And then we would see probably more development as that occurs. Most of the real estate market is still primarily with existing homes and not with new homes.
And I think the key thing for us is when Tribute comes in and says, hey, we want to plot this area. Castle Cook does have a couple of areas that they've platted already, I believe, south of town. Or not, well, they're in town, but they're on the south end. But they haven't done the plats for Tribute. But once they start doing the plats for Tribute, I think that'll give us a clear signal that things have changed.
Yes, and also, Mr. Mayor, there are significant facility improvements planned for the Tribute that are dependent on the development fees to pay for them in the future, as opposed to capital improvements funding.
Okay.
Okay, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So, just to refresh my memory, are development fees assessed when they do the public report of the plating or when they pull the permits?
When they pull the building permit.
When they pull the building permits, okay, thank you. Do we have any idea how long it's gonna take us? It would, the 632,000, I think you said, over the last 2 years, how long that we will take to recoup that with TPT and property tax? Do we have any idea? Because I know a couple of those were businesses.
A long time.
A long time.
Yeah. Given our property tax rate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty much
And,
what I thought. I
yeah,
just wanted to.
and then one of those was office, so.
Yeah. Yeah. One of them was a
One.
dental clinic,
Mhm.
a retail store.
Mhm.
Okay.
But 2/3 was 158 permits for single family.
So 2/3 of it was that. So
Was
that was
180.
strictly property tax, which is
The
Yeah.
bulk is
pretty
residential.
small.
Infinitesimal.
Okay.
Okay.
140 building permits for single family.
Any other discussion on this item? Questions? Okay. We'll now move on to item number 8. Chief Thrasher.
Yes, sir. This is a renewal of the IGA with Cochise College and the Sheriff's Office for the Academy down at Cochise College. This one's for the next 2 Academy classes where we'll provide an officer to be a recruit training officer down there. Very similar to the last one. A significant change is the college will now reimburse the city up to $10,000 in overtime for the RTO and provide 3 free Academy slots as part of the RTO, part of the agreements.
Good job, Chief.
So that's it. We have to
And you didn't have to twist JD's arm too much?
Did not, actually. He came in and said that we need to do this because we were doing it for the sheriff's office.
Oh, so
Good
I was
man.
gonna.
Oh, we would credit you.
Yeah.
I just accepted it. You told me to accept it.
I was thinking like you're a hardcore
Oh, no.
negotiator.
Okay. Any other questions for the chief? Okay, thanks, chief. Next item is item number 9, Mrs. Yarborough.
Okay, so by your intergovernmental agreement with Cochise County for Court Services, which you'll be discussing next as well, that agreement goes back to 1990. The agreement requires that you appoint the Justice of the Peace for Precinct 5 as your city magistrate. It's also in city ordinance that the presiding officer of the municipal court shall be the magistrate who shall be appointed by mayor and council. So this performs the action of appointing the justice of the peace for precinct 5 as the city magistrate.
Questions, discussion?
I have a question, and I'm looking at the 2016 IGA, actually, I pulled that up. Where do we actually cede the authority to say who's going to be in that position?
I'm sorry, Kristen, I didn't hear that question.
I'm looking at the 2016 IGA, actually. I guess, because it kind of goes with the next one
Okay.
together. But where in here does it actually cede the authority for us to make that appointment? Like where, and that's what I couldn't understand, and I read this several times, is where exactly does it say that we have to accept whoever they have put in that position?
I don't think it says that, but basically when you're talking about ceding authority, we still have the authority to appoint the magistrate under both agreements. We don't have the authority or influence in deciding who JP5 is if it's replaced.
Agreed.
And that's part of the problem that I think in the next document we'll see, we at least will be consulted in that,
Yeah,
rather
we'll-
than
and we'll
rather
go over
than
that.
learning about it after the fact.
But to get to the question, statutes provide that municipalities can use consolidated court and the justice courts to serve as magistrates. So that is in statute. The appointment, it either is a situation where you appoint the JP or you have your own court and you appoint your own magistrate. So we've been in this agreement for a long time, and then the agreement then stipulates the appointment then, so that's what we're functioning under.
Okay, Christine, are you asking, like, it says in the memo what the city code states? Is that, I think I'm
I'm actually-
misunderstanding your question.
Right.
No,
Excellent.
you're fine. I'm actually looking at resolution 2016-093 from 2 years ago. I
Okay.
printed that out
Okay.
to actually compare to the new one that is coming up because I'm a dork. So,
That's the proper thing to do though.
yeah. So, and what I'm looking at is I'm actually looking specifically at section E and section F, which we're still operating under the 2016 resolution.
Right.
And it says, the city shall have the sole authority to appoint the city magistrate pursuant to ARS 22-403, which says subsection A, the presiding officer of the municipal court shall be a magistrate who shall be selected in a manner provided by the charter or ordinances of the city or town. The magistrate shall receive such compensation as provided by the governing body of the city or town. I don't have a problem with that area at all. What I'm saying is that it says of the city or town, and we're basically being given somebody that we have to say, yep, whatever you wanted, that's what we said was cool.
Right.
And we
because-
have nothing. We're just supposed to say, that's awesome, thank you for your big poop sandwich, and it's delicious.
So, but then the city code does state that we're appointing the magistrate, which
Sure.
would be
But
the justice of the peace.
But what I guess I don't get, and this is what I'm asking for, is where does it say that it has to be that person? It says that we have the sole authority to appoint the city magistrate. I understand that generally it is the same person, and I would prefer for it to be that person. But when, in my opinion, something unethical has gone on, I'm not sure why we have to step up and say, okay, we'll just approve it and make it okay because you were unethical. We'll approve that.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with your opinion that something was unethical. I think it was the manner in which the
Perception.
business was conducted was not open in public.
Agree
You
with
know,
that 100%.
and-
And I would
and-
say that would never happen here in Sierra Vista. If we did that,
If we did that, we'd be
we
in trouble.
We would never do that. But for us to
From
be asked to
rafters.
approve something in a manner that we would never conduct business in Sierra Vista, I have a problem with that.
I agree.
So, that tells me you got a no vote.
Yes.
Okay, but do you have a remedy? That's the question.
Do I actually, the next one, if we were going to discuss the two in conjunction, it might be easier if we did
Okay.
the next two
Why
in
don't,
conjunction.
does anybody have an objection if we move on to the next
No,
item?
I don't
Because
know.
I think we're already there.
Yeah.
So Victoria, why don't you give us the next item?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. So the next item is approving the IGA with Cochise County for the Consolidated Court Services. Again, we've had this agreement since 1990. This changes it quite a bit because the county realized in the past year that it had a different agreement with the other cities in the county that operate consolidated courts. This extends the agreement for 1 year. It ends on June 30th of this year. So it extends it for 1 year in order to give the county time to work with the other communities in the county to develop a consistent agreement between everyone. So what the major changes are in the agreement you see here is that
And this replaces the agreement or the
Yes.
legislation
Yes, it
that she referred to previously. Okay.
So it specifies that the Justice Court Precinct 5 is the city's municipal court. It specifies that the city will pay $100,000 for court costs plus an additional $61,000 for a part-time magistrate pro tem. The city will pay the county directly, who will then take care of paying the magistrate and magistrate pro tem. It ends the additional payment to the Justice of the Peace. We also require that the presiding judge of the Superior Court will appoint a magistrate pro tem who is a licensed attorney in good standing with the state bar. And finally, in the event that the Board of Supervisors ever needs to appoint a Justice of the Peace for Precinct 5 again, that they will consult with the City Council on their selection. However, the final decision does still remain with the board.
And this is only a 1-year agreement.
It's only for 1 year. It also requires the new formula for what the city would pay the county for services is developed by April 1st, which would need to be approved by City Council and the Board of Supervisors. So that's in place in time for council to budget for next
And the,
fiscal year.
and the part that really will probably change from this agreement has to do with the $100,000 that is over and above the fine revenue that they collect. The county does not get all the fine revenue. The state skims off a good portion of that ahead of time. So the $100,000 is supposed to make up the difference. The problem that I have with the $100,000, although it's been on the agreement for a while, is that it doesn't stipulate exactly what it is we're paying for that $100,000. Is it overhead costs? Is it staff costs? Is it what is it that we're paying for? And that is what we're trying to do, working with the county administrator to determine what those costs are, so we could have a better idea what that number is supposed to be and what exactly it's going to be paid for. The other parts in terms of ensuring that the pro tem is a judge and leaving a
Is it
consultant
attorney?
package
Is it attorney?
in, or an attorney, I mean, yeah, sorry. And the next part, dealing with consulting the council would stay in place. That would be our hope. So essentially, that's where we're at. We really only have two options here, unfortunately. One is to name the JP, the magistrate, or the other is to stand up our own magistrate in court. So that's, unfortunately, where we're at. There's not a lot of options.
And the cost to do that.
Well, it was the last time we did a study is fairly old now, but it would have been an additional $250,000 over where we're at now here. I would assume it'd probably be higher than that now.
Okay. Thank you.
And do you know how much we waive, well, I guess waive is not the word, but don't collect in fines that they take in fines and stuff, around?
Well, that's a really great question, Christine, because that's part of the problem that
That's a question we've been asking for years.
yeah, that the county is really wrestling with, because a lot of that depends on the judge in place in the JPs. Some are more aggressive in terms of collecting fines than others. I think Judge Dickerson was probably pretty good at it. Others around the county, maybe not so much. So it's really the judge's discretion in terms of how aggressive they are when they have fines. And when we did have our own magistrates, there was differences in how well they collected the fines as well. So each one is different and makes it difficult for them then to determine what the rate of collection is going to be. Because it's a judge.
Uninsured.
And Adam, I'm sure, has something to add
the last study that was done on this, the only courts in the state that actually made any money didn't have to do with collecting fines, but were tacking fees on top of the fines.
Yeah.
For payment plans, that kind of stuff, because the actual amount of fees that are collected for fines is actually pretty low compared to what citations are issued.
Since we're hitting both resolutions, what are the ramifications if we don't reaffirm the magistrate Thursday?
You know, that's a good question, because if we don't appoint the JP, I think we would have to negotiate some sort of time frame to stand up our own court then at that point. And if so, we would have to find a facility and staff and buy the software and everything necessary from the state of Arizona to operate the court. So hopefully we would get some time from them to do something.
So then
like
basically we look at $500,000 compared to $160,000.
And if I may,
that. Well, actually, it was more than that, William, because we were paying the magistrate separately. It was about a $30,000 delta.
And I guess this is the one thing that I would state is that if something isn't right, I'm not sure at what point you say, well, it costs too much money, so even though
Oh, I
it's not
agree.
right, we just go along with that.
I agree.
So, can I interject here, Mayor?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So I understand the heartburn with all of this. I truly get it. The perception of the way it was done, it was horrible optics. But legally, through the court system, there was nothing that was illegal in what they did. They acted within their right. So my statement to that would be is if we as a council start making decisions based on our personal principles, our personal opinions, our personal ethics, then I think we start running into trouble. And what they did was legal.
But just because it's legal doesn't make it ethical.
But
Those
that's
are
a
two
personal
separate-
opinion.
And I agree, but my feeling is that we were elected in some parts to deal with what we believe is ethical and what we believe is right. And I don't believe that representing the people of Sierra Vista and saying, yeah, that's cool what they did, we would do that. We wouldn't do that.
No, we would not.
Never do that. And for us to say, yeah, that's okay, you did it in a way that we would never ever do it, I have a problem
Well,
with that.
I don't see this as endorsing the action of the supervisors.
No, I see
And
it
that's,
as
I think that's what you're
acting.
implying is we're endorsing their action.
I think we are.
I think we're making a separate decision as to whether or not the appointed magistrate can in fact do the job. Now, the way he got the job, I think everybody has a little heartburn with,
Yeah.
but is he capable, and
That he is.
and can he perform? And legally, he meets the legal requirements.
Yeah, that is true.
And,
I
and
agree with that.
it may be lower than some people should think they should be, but that's another issue. So, again, I personally don't see this as an ethical conundrum for us.
And can I also add one more thing too? Is I think what we're doing is we are hired. We're not hired. We are elected to serve the citizens of Sierra Vista, and a big part of that responsibility is fiscally.
I understand 100%. And again, what I would state is I still think there is a point that even though it costs X amount of money, and I don't like that at all, trust me, I don't like that. I still think there just becomes a point where I'm just like, well, it's just not the right thing to do.
No,
And again, I think your vote has to reflect that, Christine, because I don't agree with that concept. Legislation by morality is a very dicey line for me, and I don't think that that's our job.
under the new IGA that we're also looking at, we're not selecting an individual, we're selecting
The
the court.
courts,
When is that IGA taking effect? I thought it was July, right?
July 2020.
Yeah. Well, actually, it'll be July of this
This
year.
year.
And it's worded that way, and yes, it does have the effect of naming the incumbent as the magistrate, but theoretically, if this agreement stays in place and the council is agreeable to, in the future, of having a consolidated court, with Cochise County, then the JP would, there'll be an election and there'll be a duly elected, JP next year, and they will serve as the head magistrate, although the pro tem primarily hears most of our cases.
Which is a lawyer in this case,
Yeah,
it's
This is a
Gary
lawyer,
Rager,
Which
correct?
which both the presiding judge and the county agreed to in our negotiations.
Okay, any further discussion on this item? Or these
I
items,
just-
I should say?
Yeah, my thought is that I do think that we address the problem or the ethical question by renegotiating our IGA with the follow-up of saying that the IGA that we, changing how we do business in the future with them, showing that we disagree with the ethical decision that was made. But I do agree with Christine that we are here to vote our conscience, and that's, if that's your personal opinion and how you feel, then it's of what's right and wrong. I think we are here to follow that. It's our role as the representatives of our city.
Okay. Anything else on this item, or these items? Okay. All right, then we'll move on to item 11, and that is that Barbara? Okay, Barbara.
So, before you today, I have for your consideration, is an addendum to the city manager's contract. This addendum has one change for a term and condition in the contract that's in place, and that would be to change the annual base salary to $171,384. We have to get each of these.
Okay.
It's the only change.
Any questions, discussion? Okay, then that completes our, except for the call to the public, and the comments, requests of council, and the adjournment, that completes the meeting notes. Next, we need to move on to the strategic plan discussion, and who's gonna lead this from staff?
This was as requested, Mayor, by council to discuss individual priorities as they relate to the strategic plan discussion. So it's back on the agenda for you to do just that. I have no presentation for you on the strategic plan itself.
And you did provide the plan in the book, so, who wants to start?
I've been talking too much. Somebody else. You're the one that asked for this, Christine.
Well, fair.
So you get to start. I will start. I guess my feelings with the strategic plan is I feel like in a lot of places we're not really pushing the way we should push. I think some of these things are just stuff that staff does anyway, and I think it's better to set something and reach for the stars and fall on the moon, right? And I think we have an awesome staff. I think we can push them harder and see what happens. One of the big things that I really would like to see in here is more of, and I don't see it in here really, is more of like a shop local, and I don't care if it's small or large or whatever, but more of a shop local campaign to get started so that we keep those TPT dollars here in Sierra Vista, and then we can, spend those dollars. So that's my major concern.
How does everybody else feel does having a shop local program, does that raise the level of the strategic plan?
Under
Or
what
is it-
area?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is what, and
Oh,
how
I
would,
don't know, because I don't care about these items.
well, again, and I'll say this is a plan, and plans can change, be amended, et cetera, throughout the year. But
Yeah, for me, it would be more.
I didn't hear a consensus about this specific item or even discussion during the strategic plan about this specific item.
Right, and I think that's fair, and that was one of my issues, is I felt that a lot of us had things that we wanted to talk about, and it was never actually brought forward. So that's one of my things, and if people don't agree with that, I'm fine with that, but I wanted to at least have the option to bring it forward and talk about it with other council
I
members.
think we all felt that way,
So, Mayor,
most of us.
Yeah.
could we just hear what everyone's priorities are and see how many of them match maybe and go from there?
Okay, you wanna do that?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, so you got any others?
That was my major one.
So
Okay.
yours is shop local, I'm just gonna write it down.
Okay, shop local, and who wants to go next?
William.
Oh, does he?
Does he?
It does.
Let me figure out which one I'm gonna start reading. I have them all written on my phone, so I didn't want to print.
I think part of the thing that, and a couple of you already heard this, because there's initiatives, the actions are already listed on here, and not the way it was in previous
In pre-
strategic plans. It was I was drawing too much attention maybe to what the staff will be doing, and so I get worried about approving this and not having everything that we want in it, or having something we don't want in it, and then later, a year down, well, this is what was approved, and it's in black and white and an action. And I don't want to marry that action, but maybe the idea, just the,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Do you want me to address this thing?
Just go ahead.
Okay. So, I'm gonna steal your thing, sorry, because I wrote on it earlier. So, when we look at strategic planning, and I think this, from what I'm hearing with every one of you that we've spoken about the strategic plan, I feel like there's some confusion going on. So, I think relabeling what the
Titles?
titles are, not the engage. So like engage, for example, I'm going to use the engage page. Engage would be the objective. We want to engage the citizens of Sierra Vista in a higher manner, right? That's where that came from. Then under that, instead of just goals, those are actually strategic goals, because they're saying a strategic goal is we want to improve citizen satisfaction. And then instead of actions, which I think is what's scaring some of the council members, is, and one example I heard was the Mercado. People are having trouble with the Mercado concept. That's not, we're not approving the Mercado in here. We're looking at the feasibility of that. Then economic development team will bring that back to council, and we will make a decision to go from there. So, is that clear?
If I could jump in for just a second
Sure.
to piggyback on that. What happens next after the strategic plan is approved by council? The staff brings an implementation plan to you, and
Yes.
that gives you a list of how staff would plan to go about achieving each of the actions they would take to achieve the initiatives which would achieve the goals. And then we bring that back to you every 6 months, a report, so you can say, this is what we've worked on, this is the direction we're going, and that's council's opportunity every 6 months to check in and say, we're not okay with the direction this is going, we don't want you to pursue
That's right.
X, Y, Z, we think instead you should focus on this, or say, this is great, we like the direction.
That's right.
So if something like a Mercado came up, that would be
That's right.
council's opportunity to say, we like or do not like that
Mhm.
option.
I always liken it to, it's council's job to say what we want to see happen, and then it's Chuck's job and the staff to tell us how that they can do that, and then we approve that. But we just tell the staff what we want to see, and then they come back with how to do it. They're the experts. So I just wanted to bring that up to maybe change those titles, and that might help some of you understand more what you're looking at.
To me, and I'll put this out there, is that I don't care about the titles, honestly. But I think that is, part of the problem, and I think part of what maybe Carolyn, and I don't want to put words in your mouth if I
That's right.
am, is the number one role under here is improve citizen satisfaction. Well, okay.
They're so vague, I agree.
Okay. You know, and I think that's part of the problem. So that's the goal. So you have no choice but to look underneath, because what does that mean? Like, I'm satisfied when somebody gives me a cupcake, but maybe not everybody is.
No, I am.
Yeah.
So
So
it's like-
I would agree that there's
Takes a little
some
bit more for me.
measurable
I would agree that there's some measurable actions that should be put under the strategic goals. And I know that Eric and I cannot remember Nicole, they kept preaching that is we need measurables. I know in our group she made us come up with measures and ways, metrics, and William was in that group as well to do that. So if we don't see that on the strategic plan, then maybe that's one of the changes.
The actions on here are the actions for the staff. On this, on what we're looking at.
Yes,
Our
because that's
goals
what
are
they
the
do.
first three, like the one I mean, it's a good goal, I like it. Could probably went into more detail. The increase annual revenue growth 3 to 5%. For Empower, there's more we can do, but it accomplishes what we want to do. It gives them more of an umbrella, more of a paintbrush so they can do what they want to do to accomplish that. But I think it was missed for us to bring things to the table more of, here's what we want to see as a collective. Because like you said, we were in one group. We only worked on one goal, and you had the other groups working on another goal, and we created actions more than we created paint your city what you want to paint it, and
Okay.
let's make that happen.
So that's why we were saying, and I think that's why Christine, and I think it was your turn, to tell us what your priorities are. So that we can hear everyone's individual priorities and see how they apply.
They're there. I mean, and I agree with the titles: empower, enhance. I want to promote a healthy, sustainable economy reflecting community values, and we have to build those values. I looked into the
I'm sorry,
homeless.
I'm writing them down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you repeat that again?
I have a whole bunch, but I'll just give you. Promote a
Give me
healthy,
3.
sustainable economy reflecting community values.
Okay.
And a lot of that is we talk about our small town feel and one of the greatest communities we've all ever lived in. Let's promote that. Let's use that. We have a great opportunity from our location in Cochise County, Southern Arizona, to do a lot of things. So let's start doing that. Let's start selling that more. Got right behind me, but and I mean, there's more, and I have ways to look at it to analyze it and to see if we're doing that, but I don't want to go there. To me, it's just a matter. Let me get my other ones. I'm sorry, I'm babbling now like Miss Christine.
Christine was not bad.
I want to see more strong community events and festivals, which entice people to come here and stay here, and we're working on that, but I think that should always be a mainstay because it all turns into that quality of life. And then we need to sell ourselves as the most beautiful city in Arizona,
Okay.
which we are. And it just depends. I think Christine brought some way up we could do. I think you brought some way up we could do it.
Yeah, I think I was these actions. So I had things
just
written
ignored
down
the
that I feel like
actions.
are more actions, but maybe they fall under other actions. And I was just worried about them not getting addressed if I agreed to just one list of things.
Can you list what you were concerned about?
Well,
To know?
And it might be under engage, analyze how information is shared with community partners and identify ways to improve if needed. Remember I kept bringing up the website, and I know staff has to just fix some things and get it ADA compliant. And the closed captions for meetings, what's a request by Cody, and but that might all fall under this. And I think
Do you have like a broad vision?
just to improve citizen awareness and communication with them, and all citizens, not just the ones who can hear and see.
Okay.
I just want to make a comment on what you just said. These are good things, and they probably fit under this.
Yeah.
But in the process, we're not quite at that point. As Assistant City Manager said, as the staff will do this, they will look at that, and they should come up with some individual initiatives like that on what we need to do.
And it was
And we may
probably-
not be able to pay for ADA closed caption stuff right away, but if it's on the list and we can put it in the budget again next year, we'll meet the 2-year goal.
Right.
But again, it's kind of understanding the process a little bit too, and making sure that we as a council are monitoring the process.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry.
I think it would have been easier to that older strategic plan, the previous one, that was more, didn't have these specific actions.
It had initiatives.
Yeah, but it wasn't as precise, I guess. There's some
It
details
wasn't
in here that I
as
have to.
Detail oriented. It was more broad
And I know
stroke.
part of that's because we had new people leading our strategic planning, so that's probably why this is so different. But
But do you feel that the plan as it is now, do you think it reflects everything that you want in it? Are there other priorities you want us to know about?
Yeah, like the broad stroke ones. Is there any that aren't in here?
yeah, like I don't on positive mentions. I don't like the identified hashtags. I think that should just be. You can look for Sierra Vista being mentioned positively without using a hashtag. And then the Sarah and I think when someone brought up homelessness and then we mentioned mental health and Sarah, and since it's such an overlapping thing, we put it on the one card. And somehow that never made it to anyone's group. It just got, even though half the council cared about enough to put it on a card.
Oh, I agree. I was looking into it more when we were coming up with things for your instructions, Mr. Mayor. And a lot of cities across the country, and I don't want to compare us to others, I'm just saying what other cities do, they have their own separate mental health homelessness master plan, kind of like we have a CBDG plan, say that 5 times, of how they're going to enhance, how they're going to talk about that issue. And I'm not saying let's see,
And maybe that's what needs to be put in this.
Roger.
To basically say in the next 2 years, we'll develop a plan working with the county, the state, the local agencies, et cetera,
Right.
to deal with, mental health issues, homelessness, whatever it may be, kids not having meals at schools after when they leave school, that kind of things. And we need to develop a plan how we can activate
Roger.
the community structure that's now in place and enhance that.
Roger.
Under
So-
empower maybe, or
If I could share my missing
Okay.
points, it's piggyback on yours. My number one, and I've already said this at every meeting that we've had on strategic plan, was addressing homelessness specifically. And we had a long discussion about it in strategic planning and then took it out of the final plan. And then in deep diving into the CDBG plan, that document, it states that our homeless rate went up 53% in 1 year. I mean, that's a staggering
But again,
statistic.
when you start with the 3,
It was more than 100. So, the living on the street was more. It was 114.
yeah, there are more people now that are
Okay,
doing it.
so-
I agree.
And the rate went up 53%, and in 1 year. That's a pretty big jump.
Well, what I'm hearing is that probably needs to, I'm guessing right now it needs to be under the engage or empower. Which one?
I think empowered.
Empower.
But that's revenue growth.
No.
Yeah.
That,
well,
yeah.
that's only one goal, and I feel like that's a little slim for everything else has so much.
Well, that's because.
Well, a lot. I
empowered
think
costs
Who was
one of the things, Mr. Mayor, if I may, and everyone else, I think it goes too. We don't have any. And I know we have things that say we partner with people and we seek people out, but I know a lot for everybody. Collaboration is huge. So even in empowerment, if we collaborate with the right people and we bring the right people to the table, there's more ways we can empower our community.
I would tell you and I think the chief would probably agree with me, we are collaborating with the right agencies. The thing is, we need to see what else we can do. We need to see how they can collaborate with each other.
Roger.
And build those bridges and connections. And some of them are already there, some of them aren't already there. But again, if we need to add a bullet to, what was it? You said empower. It says something like, instead of increase revenue, we put number 2 there that says empower agencies to deal with social, mental, or homelessness, mental health, and whatever. And then we'd have to come up with, convening the support systems, identifying and convening support systems, developing relationships with other folks. I mean, there's a whole series of things under the goals that would have to be added. And
Okay.
they would like, I think the staff would like your assistance at least
Yeah,
on those things based on your experience.
I have some ideas.
And we do, and I will tell you, even though our homelessness rate may have grown significantly, which is a bad thing, I'll tell you, we're still doing very well with the veterans population
Yes.
through the HUD Dash program. Those guys working with
Do a great job.
they're doing a great job. So there are some stars out there
Mm-hmm.
that are helping, and that's who we need to identify and make sure that everybody's talking with one another.
So on that point, if I could follow,
Okay.
sorry,
Yeah.
real quick, is the other kind of disturbing, thing that came out in the CDBG thing was the lack of affordable housing units. And we did have a goal in our plan is to affordable housing, but all 100,000 of those dollars right now in the plan is for rehabilitation to homeowner housing.
Yeah.
But the bigger concern in the statistics is for those that have, is for renters. Renters can't find affordable places to
And
rent.
that's something that
So not
we can
homeowners.
address not through
Yeah.
just CDGB, but
IDA.
through IDA and
Yeah.
other agencies. They have in fact built low-income apartments, et cetera, in the past.
Many, yeah.
And if we have an issue with that, we need to work with the IDA so they get the appropriate funds through the housing HUD to do that. So that's probably another good point.
Mayor, I was just gonna say, under Empower, maybe the goal could be to identify community partners that focus on homelessness and mental health. Victoria would be a strategic goal. Cause that's broad enough.
Identify community partners.
Yes, that focus to collaborate on tackling homelessness and mental health.
Are you saying for the title or for the goal ID and actions?
I'm saying for the strategic goals.
Okay.
We
Sorry,
have-
it
That's okay.
gets confusing on me.
It's very confusing.
On that same page, Victoria, we also have a couple actions that are water related, but no goal associated. So we need to,
Which one are you on?
I'm sorry,
They're all
empower.
associated with.
With revenue growth. Yeah.
So we don't wanna have like an increased water conservation goal or anything like that.
I think the mayor had a good point earlier. You said we're pretty much to the point where it's hard to.
Well, we still need to look for innovation.
Oh,
But-
absolutely.
But the point I made earlier was that
The measurable.
when you talk about measurables, that you're talking about getting the per capita usage down to X.
Right.
When we cut it and cut it and cut it, we get to a point where people need water, and we're not gonna be able to go another 10% or another 15%
Right.
down. So that's kind of where we are right now. We probably could establish some goals like that, but I'm not sure they'd be realistic where we meet them. We all obviously will continue to do the toilet rebate program.
Yeah, we have to take that on though, because it
Yeah,
was through the
yeah,
budget
we're gonna take it back on.
Meeting with Mary and Kate
Yeah,
on Friday.
and so
Discuss that.
there's some room there, but the areas we have the opportunities, we need to continue to do the water conservation.
So maybe that could be continue to look for innovative ways for
Yeah.
good water conservation and stewardship would be a strategic goal.
And we're still, I mean, to me, that's part of the ethos or the things we normally do on the staff. I think the engineer department does that.
I think so too.
The community development, I know, does that. We talk about our strengths and weaknesses in water all the time, and that's published. I know Laura doesn't water the ball fields anymore, that she absolutely has to. and that's why we're going to turf. Yeah, so I think we're doing the right things, and again, I think it's become a way of life, an ethos for us, rather than something we would need to put on the strategic plan. But maybe, you know, if you don't think we're there, I guess you don't think we're there, but I think we're getting, if we're not there, we're pretty damn close.
Oh. Well, is this reflecting what's important to council? Like, is this speaking
Right.
to this council?
That's what I was gonna say. If you feel like that's an important topic, because the staff takes this and that's what they focus on for the next 2 years. So if you think that's something that council, and water is very important. I agree. That's one of my
And since we
top
have
goals.
these two here, I figured we could put it in there so
I don't have a problem with adding that goal.
I don't know. No, I think that's okay.
That strategic goal.
So we're talking under empower, what's the wording going under
Victoria,
water?
what was the wording?
Well, we didn't talk about a wording for water yet. What
No, we
you-
did. I gave it to her.
No, I thought that was a different.
I started to write down, continue to look for innovative ways to, and you said something on water conservation.
Maria has it.
So fast I can't write it down.
Welcome to my life.
Maria has it.
I get this every day at home. Continue to look for innovative ways to improve water conservation and continue good stewardship.
That's
Can-
what I was saying.
Stewardship.
Can we use something more broad, like environment, instead of water?
No.
'Cause why not?
I don't think so. We're talking specifically about water.
I know, but we have other issues that
Goals
are
that-
happening for a goal where we could have action items that handle those also.
But that could be 4. That could be another.
Okay.
So what, I'm not saying we can't do that. I'm saying in this particular thing, we want to focus strictly on water because that's important to this community. And plus, it's just easy to say maybe you wouldn't.
Hey, everybody tries. I kind of agree with Mr. Mayor on it, but
It doesn't hurt to say we're going to continue to do that. The key thing is for the staff, when they come up with their action items, they're going to be fairly limited on what they can do. If you have a general goal like that, I think it's doable.
Mm-hmm.
But again, how staff comes back and shows that they performed on that is going to be the challenge, because there may be slight improvements here and there,
right.
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to be tough for them. It doesn't hurt to emphasize water continuously. So we got the water thing. Did you get language for the empowering the homeless, mental illness, etc.?
I have identified community partners that focus
Okay.
on tackling
All right.
mental health issues.
Okay.
homelessness,
And staff can come up with some
et cetera.
sub-bullets for that. Okay. Christine, I forgot what issue was though.
Shop local.
She wants
Shop
to shop.
local.
I want money then.
Power of the purse.
Uh,
Like I did with
and that should, I think that falls under the empower, increase annual revenue, but the thing is, we probably need to put an action bullet,
And that would be a specific
a
objective.
specific objective.
I,
I can agree with that. You know, I don't know what the action word is, explore or establish or
we could,
whatever it
If-
may be, but I would suggest staff look.
Encourage.
if you look right now, we have to create opportunities for business incubation. If we went 1-3 Alpha or 1-3 Charlie, we can educate the community on the benefits of shopping local and having a shopping
Yeah.
local campaign.
Yeah, that's a good
And that would
that's a
increase
good
all
fit.
3 of those.
So you go do a 3C.
Are
Right
we,
there.
Kind of like our chamber.
It's the
I
chamber.
know. I was going to say something about that being here, but
Engage in the chamber.
Engage the chamber.
I am Sierra Vista.
And they're going to focus on commerce.
Go ahead.
FYI, your Good Morning Sierra Vista September speaker is on Shop Local.
There you go.
It is a year-round program, and she's going to talk about ways that we can implement that in our community. So that is one of our goals, and it's very much on our radar.
Makes sense to partner.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
the bullet should be partner with the chamber and other agencies to promote Shop
Shop
Sierra
local.
Vista, shop local. And that should be a 3B, I think. I think we're good there. Other issues that we need to add, subtract.
William had talked about, I wrote all this down, healthy, sustainable,
Yeah, I went broad, I'm sorry.
yeah, that went, that's okay, I like broad.
I did too.
But I think I'd already, when I looked, it looked like we already had that somewhere. Let me just make sure.
I
where
was
it's at.
trying to find something similar today, and I think it lets the staff get creative on some of these. I mean, I
Yeah.
gave them ways to be creative if they want them, but
I think
Let
that
me pull
falls
it back
under the
up.
increased annual revenue.
for Empower,
And then you also
I
talked
agree.
about events, which was under enjoy, to reevaluate community and cultural events for fit, diversity, draw, and potential partners.
God, I
see
hate this
that?
computer. I need to get a Mac.
Yeah.
And then under the strategic goal, says increase public participation numbers in community events.
One more time, ma'am. You're under enjoy, right?
Under enjoy, it says increase public participation numbers in community
Yes,
events by
ma'am.
25%. One way that they would do that would be
Correct.
to underneath the initiatives.
I agree.
Okay, so you think that's taken care
I
of?
think we're good, yes, ma'am.
And then we all know we're the most beautiful city in Sierra Vista. I mean, in Arizona, in the world as far as I'm
We
Well, that's
concerned.
because I'm
We
here.
want everyone to know.
Yeah, I don't know if we want every.
Okay, you're not everybody.
That's 'cause
Okay.
we got
Other items that we need to add,
I had two
or we need to
clarifications.
discuss, I should say. Yeah.
So 2 goals that were listed was that I kind of had, the only 2 ones that I had heartburn over. So I put my, like, ones that I felt were missing that wasn't mentioned, and then ones that I only had 2 things I had heartburn over. The rest I was fine with. Was improve citizen satisfaction. I think it's just really broad.
think
Like
it is
satisfaction
ridiculous.
with like
With the
what?
cupcakes.
So like
What does it mean?
yeah, that I kind of had.
Well, I think the point of that was satisfaction with city operations or city support or functions of the city. Wasn't that the point?
This was our group. The biggest thing with perception of public safety was more ambulance response times, vehicle response times to calls. If
And
I
then
was
we
wrong,
talked
I think
about-
that's one of the things we-
This was the group that Gwen was
There's
part
2
of.
different
Yeah,
ones.
we
Two
were, we were enhanced.
Oh, yeah, that's where I'm at.
No,
No,
that's what
she's
talking
on
about.
engage.
But
Oh,
the
you
2,
said-
so the 2 goals are really close together. They're on different points,
Oh.
and they're both really broad. One says improve citizen satisfaction, and the other says improve citizen perception of public safety. And both of those, I
Different
just feel
things.
like are, I don't know, they're like.
Sarah,
think-
would you feel better if we said gauge, because one of the one of the actions or initiatives is to establish a baseline. So if we said to gauge citizen satisfaction, would that make you feel better?
Or do you want to more clearly define what you mean by satisfaction?
I think, yeah.
Like Carolyn mentioned improved citizen awareness. Do you want to be more specific about,
And it gets
I
to.
just didn't know where we were going.
But
with
it
Felt like
it gets
was
to,
so
you know, whether
broad.
you're measuring
Mhm.
satisfaction or whether you're improving engagement to the community in terms of awareness, education, and all that. If you think the community is generally satisfied, then perhaps continuing to engage and improve our communications with them would be the goal. I can tell you it will be difficult to actually measure satisfaction because we've tried that with surveys and
Well,
a
and
number
is
of
that
things.
worth the cost?
And
of
it
It's not
doesn't-
worth the cost.
And we
No.
never really get
Even if they're
No.
free.
what I would consider to be really good data out of that.
No,
And
I
then you
agree.
have to have I would rather have an ongoing
Well,
PR campaign
I
than
think,
an
I
ongoing
think,
survey
I think the
campaign.
point here is we need to continue to engage the public with information, education, and make sure they're aware of what city operations are, what they do for them, and that kind of thing.
And
when-
that encompasses
as
improving
when-
websites.
as when
and,
when
all that
changes
kind of
when
thing.
changes
Which
come
are
up.
initiatives.
Yes.
and that's why the action's focused on citizen perception, public engagement strategies, because what that group was talking about and what Gwen's concerns were was that we were engaging with the public enough and could improve the way that engagement with the
You know, that's where
community is carried
social
out.
media comes in and, you know, a lot of other tools.
And the
Yeah.
podcast idea.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good
So-
way to.
Well, and the other was the perception of public safety, and not just like, is there a negative perception of public, I mean, I guess
That was my
Well,
issue
are we
too.
gonna
Yeah,
find
why
there's a
is it
negative?
I'm not getting that. The chamber?
I never heard that.
Yes, we have several people when they're looking to relocate and move to this community that call the chamber and ask, how safe is your community?
Oh, 'cause we're
Because of the
going to
perception
town.
from mass media.
Well, but you're talking border issues there. You're not talking, you're not
Sometimes.
necessarily talking fire or police support.
Oh, no.
It varies. We
Okay.
have, it's
Did they
probably
ask you
fair
how many
amount.
drug dealers got shot last week?
They ask us if there are, what the crime rate is.
Yeah.
Yes, how bad is crime in the city?
Yeah.
Is it noticeable? And I
And-
generally say, do you
and-
notice the crime in your community?
And the answer to that is simply we have an FBI report that says we're, what, one of the best in the country as far as the 10 major crimes or 12 major
Well,
crimes,
yeah,
whatever it is.
we're above the average in solving those crimes, and it is going down overall on those.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
that's the kind of information we need to share with you,
Correct.
obviously, to do that. But again, I know the misperception is that we have people walking through the streets that are coming from the south and all that other stuff. And that may have been true 12 years ago when I could actually show you where they were staging overnight to get picked up by the vans taking them north. But we don't see that right now.
Correct, and that's what we relay to them, is that they need to understand there's a balance, that our civil servants, our
Yeah.
protectors,
So
our
it-
police, and our border folks need the exposure to receive the funds to keep us safe, but it's not like it's running rampant
It's
through
not.
our
had-
city.
I've
It's
had
not
3 people in
necessarily
the last
citizen
year
perception.
approach me and say they moved here specifically because our crime rate is low.
Yeah.
Correct.
They actually do the research, and they retired here because of that.
So get back to your point.
So-
It's
So my
potential
point is
citizen.
that goal number 1 is citizen perception, improve citizen perception of public safety, but the goals are about actual public safety. I'm not saying that that's bad. We do want our citizens to be safe, like reducing response times and all that stuff. That doesn't address perception.
But
So
but-
either the goal is misplaced with the actions or the
Well,
actions.
what we
misplaced
get,
with the
what we
goal.
get back here too is the next steps. Under the chief, both chiefs actually, should be able to say, okay, to meet this goal, what I need to do is make sure that people understand that we have a call rate at this level, we respond in this amount of time, our FBI 10 or 12, what, is it 10 major crimes that you report to the FBI?
Top 8.
In top 8 is lower than any other city in Arizona. That's the kind of stuff that we need to communicate to work on that.
The
to work
chiefs
on
were
that.
in our group, as well
Yeah.
as Matt, and I'm trying to remember, that was
So-
really, and early in the morning.
So I guess part of this comes from the goals, at least on public safety. Number one, when you start going, is the safety and security of the community, but tied hand in hand with that is the perception of safety and security, and they need to marry up.
And,
So if it's really dangerous, but everybody thinks it's safe, then you have a problem,
Yep.
and vice versa, then you have a
Okay.
problem. So the idea is to keep both of those in sync.
and that's got to be your goal to
Right.
meet that action.
Because if it's really dangerous, I don't want people walking out in the middle of this,
Yeah.
but if it's safe, they should feel that it's safe, that they can go walk out at 3 in the morning, those type of things.
So could we possibly change it then, and again, Sarah, if we said effectively communicate, I don't know the words, y'all are the police officer and the fireman over there, so help me. But effectively communicate those things to the community, what would be the word that we would be looking for?
Well, from a blunt standpoint, it's just the reality of what it is. So, I mean, it's a matter of making sure people are aware of what the issues are that go on with the city, both good and bad, so that they can make, a better decision of where they live. But
Okay.
I think partly is you improve the perception of public safety by actually improving the public safety. And even though we have a lower crime rate, we'd obviously love it if it was a lot lower.
Yeah.
Okay,
Of course.
Well,
So-
and good examples that have occurred in the past, and hopefully as we get our staffing situation, particularly in PD, up where we want it to be, is if we had an auto theft problem, we would have enough staff then to form task force or whatever in PD to
Like we-
address that.
Years ago, we had a
Proper-
gang issue.
Yeah, or
That's
gang,
been taken
or we
care
have
of
or a
pretty
property
much.
crimes issue. In the past, we've been able to stand up proactive groups to address a problem. So you watch the stats and you see where they're going. All of a sudden, well, this one's going up. We need to do something about that. Let's put resources in it for
Done with the DUI task force, which
Yeah.
I think is a really good example of a proactive.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
Exactly.
addition, oh, so go ahead.
And then, in the fire area, Brian has done a lot of good analytical work to identify where the response time issue is, what types of calls, that we need to be responding to, and that's how we developed the ambulance station concept, was through data, but are we getting all that out there? Is the public getting all that data all the time, or in a way other than through the executive report, probably.
Sometimes we need to
probably
explain
could do
why.
We could do
Why
a better
we're
job
doing
of
what we're doing.
that, yes.
And the ambulance thing is a good example of that. We've basically gone from having an insurance standard to actually having a response time standard. And since we have more medical calls and we have fire calls, it makes sense for the medical standard to be the standard we use overall when we're doing planning. And that's the kind of stuff that needs to be explained to the public. There is a method to our madness. We are focused on providing quality service at the right time, the right place. And so again, if we get back to making sure the public knows that, and that's really got to be what the
Yeah,
Can
so
I-
I think
can I
Brian
add?
really wanted to say something.
yeah. Brian, go ahead.
In addition, we're also engaging our folks to engage the public. For instance, Pulse Point.
Yeah.
Pulse Point is a
Yes.
tool
Yes.
that is assisting our public in helping themselves. And we have actively engaged our personnel to be out on the street, ready, set, go for wildland and urban phase, so we can help ourselves help the community. So that's part of the engagement portion.
How do we say
I
it?
think- oh.
Go ahead, no.
I
was
think
talking to
everything we're
myself really.
doing, the actions are all measurable, they're all actionable. I think our wording in the goal is just wrong. We're not trying to increase perception, we're improving public safety with everything we do. The pulse system, our strategy to test police candidacies at different locations to save money, reducing response times, that's all improving public safety. So maybe it's improved public safety while also educating or developing educational tools while, I don't know how to say the rest, because we don't want to change. It's good what we're doing, and we're just improving it. We're not changing the perception. That makes
Sounds
sense.
like you're saying you want to
Doesn't make
improve
sense.
public safety engagement.
Yeah, and I keep
All
going
at
back
one
to
board.
effectively communicate and educate. That's what I keep going back to. So how do we? And I want to make sure the chiefs are good with that, and that is clear for what they.
If I could, is a sub bullet under, this is probably way off base,
Yep.
I'm saying anyways. Okay, is that including somehow, like even perception, including the hospital in that, somehow, or engaging with the hospital, because that affects the perception of public safety. I mean, if we were going to be really working on improving perception of public safety, then we'd also be improving perception of our hospital, because that is, there are people who leave because of their perception of hospital, and there's people who stay because of it. I mean, and there's, when good things happen, we celebrate loudly that those good things happen. You know, those kinds of things. I don't know. That might be way off
Well,
base. But
the thing is, the question I have is, really is a city government. That's what we are, the city government. Obviously, things like the hospital, the school system, the college, the churches, other nonprofit organizations, they all are part of the community. So the question really is how do we engage and ensure that they're full partners and can promote their particular interest, whether it's the hospital or whether it's whatever. And is that something that we as a council are prepared to take the lead on, because nobody else is good. I'll tell you that from experience. Nobody else is going to stand up and do it. And I mean, and that's a bigger mission. I know she's going to volunteer to take over the mission, right?
So
Jennifer.
Part of that is a huge part of our new website that'll be hopefully up in August. Has one drop-down tab that is all about Sierra Vista. One is relocate, visit, things to do, services, city government. And on those pages, I'd be happy to share what we have built so far for your review. But it lists all the churches, all the schools, all the resources, a lot of the community resources in the area. And
But again, when we talk about challenges like changing the perception of a hospital or expressing concerns with the school board that now, since last year, our junior high and high school have gone to C level rather than being at B level. You know, what is our role? How is our involvement in that? And all those are economic factors, obviously, for the future of the community. And the question really is, we probably need to sit down and have a discussion about what our role as council is and a leadership role. And I think that goes beyond the strategic plan.
Can I readdress something? I think I was taken a little different than I wanted to put it out. We haven't engaged. And we're engaging the community on things we're doing and what we're doing for the betterment of the community. But as a government, we also have to improve, and this is kind of why it's on here, and I kind of brought it up. We have to always improve our public safety. So when we were talking about it, I don't know how we got perception of it, but everything we mentioned was response times, building a new EMS over in what we're doing, is to actually physically, we want y'all to improve our public safety because it's important to us. Not that we have to let the public know and educate them, hey, this is what we're doing. We're doing that on engagement. So our strategic goal is saying, right now, here's where we are. That's fine anywhere else, but we want to be the best. Here's where we want to go. Get us there on public safety.
So improve public safety, what?
That I don't know.
But
that's what because it ain't perception. I mean, I agree with Chief. Reality is reality, and we have departments to take care of reality when we engage the citizens. But we also want, if we have 5-minute response times, let's go to 3-minute response. I'm just throwing numbers out there, Chief. Don't think I'm a hope. It's another. But let's be the best, and to do that, we got to get away from the idea or the notion that all we're here to do is change the perception or enhance someone's feelings. Let's physically show them in our engaged section, here's what we're doing.
But I think that's a separate, I think actually improving and improving perception are two separate things.
I agree.
Like, I agree with that. And then I think perception is also over here, which would include different goals. Like, we do need to tell them, be better about telling the community what we do and how good we are at it. And then we still actually build a new substation.
Exactly.
And Mr. Mayor, I think too, as I listen here, we've got two different things going on. We've got our own core services that state statute tells us we have to perform.
Right.
You know, we have to provide police, fire service, all the various planning. All those things are things we do. We have core functions that we're always seeking to try and do better with, to improve, and that kind of thing across all our departments. And then you have this part, the community part, where yes, we want a better community, but we don't necessarily control all of it. We don't control the hospital, we don't control the school district, we don't, those are areas where we have to seek out those partnerships in order to improve. We're in a unique position to be able to convene all those people, I think more so than anybody else, but we don't necessarily have the resources or expertise to make them better. We can partner with them and help, market and do what we can to work together. And those are all worthwhile things, but they're not exactly our core service. So, I'm trying to get in my mind or wrap around what those things are, because that's more the engagement part, is engaging all those partners in the community and making the community a better place. We want to do that. The other part, the improvement, is what we try to do all the time and what's really reflected in your budget. So
I just know if we say we're going to buy a $600,000 pump truck, and someone says why, and I can turn and say, well, we got a 3-minute response time. We've saved 300 houses this year that any other city would have lost. Then everything we're doing goes together and works together instead of people complaining. I don't want to say people complaining. Looking at things in a separate issue. Okay, why do we need this pump truck? Well, here's what we want them to do, and here's the results. So when we hit that strategic plan the next 2 years or next year later, we're showing those results. So it's not the same, and I'll use it, but hopefully we're going to start getting it done this year, revitalizing the West End. And we do it here, and I'm glad we do, but those core values, fire, medical, and then parks. Without those, ain't no one coming here, whether our hospitals are good or not. A lot of cities don't have hospitals, but they don't have fire, good parks, good police, and people ain't moving there either. I just think we need to focus on the fundamentals of government, what we have to do for the citizens, and then worry about if we're engaging them the right way, if their perception is wrong, show them the facts. And that's why that was important to us when we were talking, was here's what we want to do for our city, EMS, which we're actually doing. The whole reason CCOM's moving is going to be better for us. Response times are going to be increased. Well, now we have to get that working because it just came here. So that has to be important for us because it's going to change public safety, and it's going to, not just that, in doing so, it'll change that perception.
So how about improve public safety principles and practices?
Yeah, I don't know the N words, but I like it. That makes sense. And it ain't, I agree. I'm going to shut up now. I can babble too. I apologize.
Okay. Did you get finished?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She started it.
Any other discussion? Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
You need some feedback on the items?
I don't know that we resolved the issue with improved citizen satisfaction in that case.
Oh no.
Thank God that one ain't mine.
Do you want us to rephrase it, to be more specific?
Maybe a different action, a different verb. To improve is, again, a lot of our verbs are improve. Maybe,
Plan.
I know, but
It
maybe
denotes
it's.
that we want to do that, like you'd have to survey or
Yeah.
evaluate,
Well-
and all of us have said we don't
Well,
want.
it's more likely to be
First
citizen
Street.
awareness of
Yeah.
city actions. I don't know.
Or revise to instead focus on public engagement or education.
But
I
to
think
say
just
start a
improve
podcast.
citizenship, yeah, just
I think at this point, most of us would say, make something up, Victoria. Sound-
Bring something back to you
And bring it
and
back
see
to
how you
us.
If I
like
can
it.
get the right.
Yeah.
You, you
I
could put
think
the awareness factor in there.
Yeah.
An educated public.
Okay, so we beat this horse to death for now?
Yes, sir.
I think
Okay.
so. So where are we
So
at?
the next steps is Victoria's gonna come back to us with the suggesting things for us to just kind of review. And then our strategic plan should be coming up for a vote,
Soon.
probably the next council
yeah,
meeting.
or the one after that, so,
You can bring it back to the next work session.
okay. Yeah, bring the final language to the next work session.
And Victoria, this will be prettied up, right?
Yeah, this is just the basic plan.
Yeah.
We don't want to put our
Yeah,
design
we're not
staff to
gonna-
a whole lot of work.
We're not gonna do
designing
we're not gonna
something
do a
until it's
print
final.
project until
So
we're
it's not
ready.
going to be an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It'll be a pretty.
Good.
That was just another thing I heard, so I wanted to clarify that it's going to be pretty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I know with so many ladies on the council, things have to be pretty.
That
I'm
is
learning that.
I know, right?
Exactly
Right?
correct.
We have to be
Mr. Mayor, I
pretty.
tell you, I'm the best councilman on council right
That's
now.
right, that's right, you
I'm
are.
the only one, so I'm good.
And you're the prettiest too, believe it or not. I don't, nobody's told you that before.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I
Pretty
appreciate
Okay.
it.
All right, so reports on trips, meetings, future meetings,
Did I have?
anything, anybody for that?
Oh, you guys all know the mural projects.
Yes,
I know.
Yeah,
I
good.
think
and you
they've
get good
done-
publicity.
Good
I think
picture.
the city did
Publicity.
a good job.
Good
yeah.
picture. You
Thank
and
you.
that.
Thank you for
You
getting
there?
that out there. No meeting next month for West End. This is way in the future, but November 2nd, you know how we're working on the Fry Pioneer Cemetery, making it nice, and there's going to be a dedication for that by the Sierra Vista Historical Society, and I'm sure we'll be part of it.
Okay, good.
If anybody don't have nothing to do tonight, they can always come Parks and Rec 5:30.
Well, I'm going to the P&Z meeting at 5.
Yeah.
I will tell you that on the 21st in the morning, I will be going up with a number of other local officials to Tucson for a breakfast meeting with the Secretary of Defense. He'll be in,
Nice.
and he's due to come into Fort Huachuca for a couple hours and scoot out. So, and that's again a tentative schedule for him. Everything's tentative till he actually shows up because of the nature of the job. But again, we'll be talking about Fort Huachuca and the importance of the issues dealing with that. He's also going to be talking with a number of University of Arizona folks about how they can help with research and business, etc., which is a good thing because when Dr. Robbins came here, he was a little surprised to hear from me that his prior professor who had just retired that handled contracts didn't do any defense contracts out of principle. So the University of Arizona lost a lot of money to ASU and others on the East Coast on research things that they could have been doing for the Department of Defense. So they're trying to get that re-energized as well. That's one of the reasons it's up in Tucson. So that should be a very interesting breakfast, and hopefully I'll have some things to share with you when I come back. But chances are I'll get a chance to say, hello, my name is Mayor Mueller from Sierra Vista, and that'll be about it.
Hey.
But that's the way sometimes that's the way those things go. Okay, anything on boards and commission liaison updates? Yes, ma'am.
Super quick, I just want to say the Tourism Commission did their first outreach at the Sips and Skies Festival, and so they actually set up a table and handed out brochures to everybody who came down and talked to them about how awesome Sierra Vista was, and I'm so proud of them. And they also had extra sunscreen for anybody who knows that I get a little pink.
I didn't ask, how did we do that day?
Yeah.
We don't have all of the costs back yet because the P-card statements haven't come in, but the revenue looks very much in line with last year, even though our operational costs were down a little bit because we started an hour later and we ended 2 hours earlier. So it was a wonderful event, great day, beautiful weather.
Okay, I was more concerned about the attendance because I know if we got good attendance, people will be spending their money. Yes, please.
Real quick, the Cultural Diversity Commission is now up to, well, one person. We have an application, so we have 2 people if we approve them. You know anybody, send the word out for people listening to the work session. Cultural Diversity, it's the place to be. Come out and help.
Okay.
So,
under future discussion items, we've already talked about bringing back the strategic plan. Anything else from requests to council? Seeing none, I appreciate all the good discussion today.
Thank you.
Even though there's probably some disagreement on some things, we appreciate you working together.
Sarah.
And why is he picking on you? Okay. With that, seeing nothing else before the council meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
That's because she keeps kicking me under the table, Mr. Mayor.